What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's team selection time ahead of Game Week 15. So all the Game Week 14 matches have finished. We're going to talk through how it went and look ahead to Game Week 15, possible transfers, stuff like that. Obviously, we've got very little time until the deadline. And all I can say is it's a good job this is a family-friendly channel, because otherwise this video would be getting demonetized through the language that I would be using about my team right now. It is awful. Anyway, if you want to check out my 888 Sport article, it's linked in the description below, going through some topics into Game Week 15. I'm also going to do a final thoughts video tonight as well. Otherwise, let's look at how Game Week 14 went. All right, I've got to be honest, I don't even know where to start with this team or this section, right? It's probably going to be a little bit longer than normal because I'm extremely frustrated with how things have gone. Pathetic. That is how I describe this team's performance this week. Absolutely pathetic. 5.7 million game week rank. I'm pretty sure this is my worst game week of the season in terms of how game week ranks go. I've fallen from 102k to 158k. Bearing in mind, in game week 7, which to be honest feels like a lifetime ago now, I was just outside the top 10k, right? I wildcarded. Now it looks like I wildcarded a week or two early because I went for Azpilicueta and Rudiger. Rudiger then gets injured. Everyone else kind of jumped on like Chilwell and James and they had Foden for those big scores. And I just got on players either a little bit late or in some cases I wildcarded a bit early. And I just haven't made great decisions since then. And some calls, like 50-50 calls, just haven't gone my way at all. And I'm not putting it all down to luck, right? I do think there's some bits that are unfortunate, but just too late to get onto big at the back. I'm still not even there now. And now I'm like even debating in my head, is it even worth still going there? Will the template kind of change? And it's just awful. 10k in Game Week 7, all the way to 158k now. That is pretty much free fall. I've only had one green arrow since Game Week 7, and I only rose like 2,000 places or something like that. And next week, I was straight back down again. In terms of this week, Salah and Jota, the only two players that returned for me. The only two. They don't even matter, right? They're so highly owned, Salah, Trent and Jota. It doesn't really matter week to week what they do, unless you don't own them, of course, in which case it's incredibly frustrating if you don't own them because they just keep getting points. Everybody else in this team blanked. Every single one of them. Not one of them could get an assist or a clean sheet or a goal, right? It was just awful. Jimenez, awful. Now, I will say Traore should have passed to him and he would have pretty much been through one-on-one with the keeper and probably would have scored, but awful. Harry Kane, awful. Antonio, awful. Like, I get it. Antonio had bad fixtures, but for him to have such a lack of returns, like he's only scored twice since August. Who expected that, right? He's been really poor. And then Josh Brownhill sitting on my bench with 3 points. I'm thinking, Saka, miss out the Man United game. That's how desperate I was this week. I really wanted Brownhill's 3 points off the bench. And of course, as soon as Saka was benched, I knew he was going to come on, right, against Man United. So he got his 1 pointer. Livramento came on for James, 1 pointer. I knew this about Livramento, right? He's not playing a great defence. He got fortunate for like 4 or 5 weeks in a row. And then bam, now he's just not been as good. And to be fair, he was playing Leicester, so I wasn't necessarily expecting a clean sheet. But yeah, the fact that I really needed Josh Brownhill to come off my bench just sums up how bad this was. And look, like I said, 50-50 calls. I said Son, he's now outscored Kane. But if I'd gone for Son, I would have also had Pukki. And Saka as well in Game Week 7, bringing him in. All he's done since then is 1 goal, 1 assist, and he's dropped 0.1 million in price. In the same time frame, Smith Rowe has 4 goals, 1 assist, and he's gone up 0.7 million. And you might think, well, okay, eye test, said Smith Rowe and all this stuff. But I actually think Saka's looked a bit more threatening, right? At least getting into better positions. And then I looked at the stats just to kind of compound my misery a little bit more. And Saka's played fewer minutes and has higher expected goal involvement than Smith Rowe over that time frame. It's just awful. It's just awful. And the thing is, I need to turn it around. And I almost want to rage transfer and do like a -8 or something like that. Or a -12. I've got 2 free transfers next week. Do like a -8 or a -12. Just switch out everyone. But I've got to be honest, I don't even know who I go for. And I feel a little bit trapped by the fixtures as well. So we're going to talk about Game Week 15. Like I said, I've got 2 free transfers. I'm pretty sure I know who I'm going to captain. But outside of that, there needs to be some big changes. I just don't know if they're going to be this week. And yeah, it's just look at it. Let's just take 2 seconds together just to look, a little bit of a silence at how pathetic this team is. Just awful. Anyway, let's talk about Game Week 15. All right, let's start in defence. Okay, so obviously Ramsdale staying, etc., not changing goalkeeper. Same with Trent and Cancelo. Cancelo started again, by the way. He started every single game so far this season. I mean, I'm not saying I would have got on him earlier because I definitely wouldn't, but I definitely would have considered him a rotation risk, and he looks far from it at the moment, right? I think he started more games than kind of any other defender in that Man City team in the league so far. So happy with them. I'm sure Cancelo will get a rest at some point. He's also on 4 yellow cards, so once he gets his 5th one before game week 19, he'll miss a game anyway. But obviously Watford away looks like a really good fixture for Man City. They're just playing so well right now. And Watford, to be fair to them, against Chelsea, they were happy to go and attack, but I think Man City will cope with it a little bit better, and there's a very good chance for a clean sheet, very good chance for attacking returns as always. Reece James massively frustrated. Now, because of the game weeks coming in quick succession, I've got to get this video out this morning. I will do a final thoughts game week preview tonight once I've heard from all the managers, all the press conferences and stuff like that. But there is a chance that Reece James is going to miss out again this week. That means 3 game weeks, 1 point and 2 missed games, right? If that happens. And the thing is, I don't think I can sell him, because once he comes back in, Tuchel's going to have no choice but to play him because they're so much better with him in the team. So I think I have to hold him because it should only be minor. And my hope is that Tuchel will say he's back. But even if he's out, I don't think I'm going to get rid of him, right? I think it would be easy just to think, right, that is super frustrating. 3 games, absolutely nothing, just get rid. But I don't think I should be doing that. And to be honest, Livramento, as much as I've kind of bashed him, Brighton at home is maybe not the worst fixture to play, because he'll be on that right-hand side, Lamptey's on the other side, so he won't have to deal with him. But also, Brighton just aren't that great in attack. The only bad thing is Lamptey will play because he was rested in the last game, and he can at least create chances. Who knows who's going to finish them? Obviously, Morpay scored a great goal in the last game, but generally Brighton aren't that great in front of goal, so it's maybe not the worst week to have to play Livramento. So I've got that buffer for Reece James. Obviously, outside of that, Amabamidele and Brownhill are no good. But in defence, it's still pretty set. The big question is, do I add a 4th defender, or do I spend that money up front or in attack? So obviously, Alonso is still the one. My only slight concern is Tuchel's already mentioned that he's not going to be able to play, like, you know, all the games over Christmas, which makes sense. No one would be able to, right? Or most players won't be able to. So, and this is the problem. I even said this like a week or a game week or so ago. I said the problem is we're not buying a player for Watford. Or that midweek fixture is if they don't get rotated, which Alonso didn't, you're then worried about rotation at the weekend as well, because then there's another quick game, and obviously if he plays that, then there's like nearly a week off to the next game, so it's not so bad. But I'm falling into the trap that I basically predicted, that I kind of want Alonso still, but now I'm worried whether this is the game week that he gets a rest, because he's just played 2 in a row, he's only just come back, but he hasn't looked that good, especially against Watford. They really did target him. My only thought around that is, I don't want to just completely blame Alonso. Salah was really bad. And also they're missing Kovacic. They've been missing Kante as well. How key are those 2 players? Like if Reece James, Kovacic and Kante are all missing this week again, and it's West Ham away, which is not the easiest fixture anyway, do I really want to bring Alonso in for that, or should I wait until game week 16? And maybe that's overthinking because of how much I bigged up Alonso, but that's kind of what's going through my mind. And to be honest, with Chelsea's fixtures, they're pretty good, but then they do turn, and then they've got a couple of blanks as well. Now, we're talking a long way ahead, so I don't want to kind of start overthinking so much that I'm going to look to get rid of Chelsea players, because I'm not. But Man City's kind of the opposite. They've got really good fixtures for a while. They haven't got any blanks to worry about because of extra competitions they're going to play in. And then maybe it's a little bit knee-jerk because Diaz has just scored. But I would get him in knowing that his goal threat is not that high. But the potential for clean sheets over the next few weeks is pretty good. And I was worried that he wasn't like completely nailed, but the only 2 games he's missed are straight after international breaks. So yes, he probably missed the odd game over Christmas, but most of the time he's going to play, and I think he can be relied on. So Diaz is an option. Obviously, Reguilon as well. I thought he played quite well. I actually tweeted out before his assist that he had been getting into good positions. I just didn't know if he could break into the template, but maybe he can, because apart from that Liverpool game, Spurs fixtures are quite good. And the way Reguilon was kind of sometimes he was going straight down the line, but sometimes when Davies overlapped, he was coming inside as well. So I do think Reguilon is, if you can spend that much money, is the defender to get from Spurs. It's just, is he better than Alonso? Last week I was sure it was Alonso, and this week maybe I got a little bit of doubt in my mind. But again, maybe that's overthinking. Let me know which defender should be added in the comments below. All right, so this is the midfield. Jotter and Salah obviously staying. I'm going to be captaining Salah again this week. I'm not really sure what Kane could have done last night to persuade me to switch back to him, but ultimately he didn't do it, right? I just wasn't impressed at all. And yes, he's got the fixture, and yes, Man City have got the good fixture as well, but Salah probably going to start again. Yes, Wolves' defence is pretty good, but Liverpool attack is just devastating. They get an early goal. It's just who knows what could happen. So Salah's going to be my captain. There's also an effective ownership conversation to be had. Like, is it worth the risk going against him? I'm just not sure it is right now. And I know you could say, well, look, you're falling down the ranks, you need to do something different, but I'm not sure backing against like the best player in the league right now is the way to do it. So Salah and Jota stay. With Saka and Mbeumo, they're actually a little bit more difficult. Maybe I'm just making it difficult, but a little bit more difficult to know what to do with than you might think, right? You easily say, just get rid of them, just get rid of them. But again, I always ask the question, who to go for when you've only got 0.4 million in the bank, right? I could go from Saka to Bowen, but I don't know with Everton away for Saka and Chelsea at home for Bowen if that is the right choice. And I feel a little bit trapped by Mbeumo because his fixtures are actually okay, like Leeds away, Watford at home. Could I give him just 2 more game weeks and then get rid of him, right? And because I don't have much money, it's hard to know what to do with it. And I'll talk about the whole team in a minute. I mean, you can see my forwards there, Antonio, Jimenez, Kane. Like, I'm perfectly happy to get rid of Jimenez this week, either to a 4.4 million forward or Josh King or something like that. And that will give me money to upgrade. The problem is it doesn't really give me enough to do anything that I'd probably want to do. So if I put Josh King in, for example, that gives me 2.3 million to spend. So Mbeumo up to a 7.8 million midfielder. If I'm honest, I'm not really sure who I would get. I could go for a Man City player like Bernardo Silva, Gundogan if he's fit, and players like that. But I don't think that's the move I want to make. Ultimately, I'd probably want to get in a Man United player like Sancho. But then I've got to decide what to do with about Ronaldo as well, which I'm going to talk about in a second when I put up my forwards. But essentially, it's really Harry Kane that's locking the money away. And if I decide to keep keep that price spot, so go to Ronaldo, there's not much money to go around in my team to upgrade the likes of Mbeumo, to upgrade the likes of Saka. So that's something that I have to give serious consideration to. So I think just to go back to this, because of the fixtures, so Mbeumo's got Leeds away, Watford at home. Yes, he's been really bad. Yes, I need to get rid of him. But I think if I've got other stuff to do, I can probably hold him for these 2 weeks. I've come this far anyway. I might as well just compound the misery. Is that the second time I've said compound the misery? I think it is. That's now the 3rd time. But compound the misery, 4th time, for a little bit longer. And Saka again, like if I got into the position where I had to hold Saka, the fixtures are quite good. And like I said, I do think I've been a little bit unfortunate for the lack of returns that I've had from him so far. I'm not saying like he's a world beater. I'm not saying he's like better than Rafinha if they had the same fixtures. Not saying he's better than Bowen, but I think the amount of returns I've had from him is probably a little bit lower than I should have been expecting. Maybe only by like 1 or 2, but that could have been a difference maker. So the midfield, the Liverpool boys look great. Saka and Mbeumo don't look great. I just don't know if this is the week to upgrade them. Game week 16 or game week 17 might be a little bit better. All right, I know you've already seen the forwards, but let's just talk about them individually. And let's also talk about transfer potential as well. So let's just start with Harry Kane. He has been awful. Given what happened with Rafinha and given like just everything we know about FPL in general, and when I say what happened with Rafinha, I mean me selling him before Norwich for a hit. I just cannot bring myself to sell Kane against Norwich at home. It's just not a clever transfer at all. I know Ronaldo just got his brace and he's playing Crystal Palace at home. It's a pretty good fixture as well. But Norwich at home, and I'm still not buying that they're suddenly this resolute team under Dean Smith. I want to see a lot more before I start having that train of thought. I just can't sell him before Norwich at home. Do I want to sell him though? Absolutely yes. Like game week 16, 17, he will be gone for me. I need to either make the choice to go to Ronaldo or unlock the funds. Now, let's talk about Ronaldo for a second. So there's a few kind of nice things that have come out from Ralph Rangnick. First of all, and this isn't from Ralph himself, but obviously Ronaldo took the penalty last night. Bruno Fernandes was asked about it. apparently he said something like he trusts Ronaldo, it doesn't matter who's on it, etc. I would hope that Ralph Rangnick would come in and just say, you are the number 1 penalty taker, you are the number 2 taker, and just leave it like that. I hate this rotating thing. It's not even like an FPL thing. I just don't see why teams do that. Have your first choice taker, have a second choice taker, and just leave it at that, or maybe third if you think you're going to need it. So Ronaldo could have penalties now, and that is a bit of a game changer. I know we've not had many penalties, and they're difficult to predict, but it does make Ronaldo a better option if he's on those penalties. And a few things that Rangnick has said in his press conference, because I've seen this one before I've recorded this video, I just haven't seen them all. He said, having seen Cristiano yesterday in the second half at the age of 36, amazing, top professional, he is still a player who can easily make the difference, which he has been. And then he said, you always have to adapt your style or the idea of football to the players available, not vice versa. There's obviously been a lot of talk about how Ronaldo will fit into a Rangnick team, but it looks like Rangnick is going to make the team fit into Ronaldo, right? I still think because of his age, and he did look pretty knackered when he came off last night, which is fair enough. He did have a pretty decent work rate, and played a really decent game against Arsenal, a pretty decent game anyway. I do think he's going to miss the odd game, and I still think I just don't know where I'm going to captain him, and I don't know if this should be like this big issue that makes me not go for him. But again, I just don't see it. Like game week 16, Salah's got Villa at home, right? And I think it's Newcastle at home, something like that. I mean, I've talked about this enough, I should know. Villa at home, Newcastle at home. So he's going to be my captain. It's not going to be Cristiano Ronaldo. But with penalties, does he suddenly make the 12.3 million price palatable a little bit more? Maybe. And the fixtures are just good for a long time, right? If he stays fit, you could potentially just keep him in your team that whole time. The big question just comes down to whether is the money tied up worth it? That is the big question, right? So if you put Ronaldo in here, then suddenly I've got 0.3 million. Even if you downgraded Jimenez to Josh King again, because he'd probably be the one to go for. I do think there's a case to be made to maybe go to a 4.4 million forward, but we'll do that in a second. So there's 2.2 million in the bank. That's all the money to upgrade this team. So if I want a fourth defender, like a Diaz, like a Reguilon, like an Alonso, obviously that takes up a little bit of the budget. Diaz would pretty much take it all up. Even if I went for Reguilon, who's a little bit cheaper, it still only then gives 0.9 million. So maybe you could do Saka to Bowen, for example. In fact, actually, you could probably do Mbomo to you could do Mbomo to Bowen, and maybe that looks like a decent enough team. The problem is it costs a -8. I'm not going to do it all this week, so obviously I've got to keep Kane one more week, but it's exact money to do it. And it does mean keeping Saka. So there's no money to kind of upgrade these midfielders if I go for Ronaldo. And that's my biggest concern. I don't doubt that he's going to score points over these games, but is he going to score enough to be value when I'm not going to captain him, right? And I just don't see why I'm going to back against Salah anytime soon. Apart from possibly in Game Week 18 when Salah plays Spurs away. But even then, Man United playing Brighton at home, I just don't think they would give him up too many chances anyway. But obviously there is some excitement around the fact that Rangnick is in now, and I do think he's going to have a positive effect on the team. The other option is to take the money out of the Kane spot to someone like Jesus or Tony, maybe. Who knows, right? There's not that many good forwards right now. And put that money into midfield. Maybe go for a Man City midfielder. Maybe go for like a Jadon Sancho instead. So just really quickly to talk about transfers, because I don't think I've done it enough, to be honest. Jimenez to Josh King seems like a move I'm probably going to make this week, unless I decide that I want to go to a 4.4 million forward, because I think ultimately once I upgrade on Bamidele, having him on the bench along with kind of Livramento and a 4.4 million forward, that's probably okay, because eventually Brownhill will get upgraded anyway. So I don't really mind having a 4.4. But let's say I go for Josh King. I could just do Jimenez to Josh King and roll the transfer and just play Livramento and hope that James plays. I need to wait and see what is said by Tuchel later on. The reason I would roll is then I leave that decision of what to do about Ronaldo or whether to spread the money in game week 16 when I'm much more happier to sell Kane. I can just get rid of him, spread the money around and do like a mini wildcard essentially, which if you don't know what that means, you've got 2 free transfers and you make kind of 3 or 4 and you treat it like a bit of a mini wildcard. You just spend the points and just kind of overhaul your team a little bit. So I think right now, as it stands, my transfers are going to be Jimenez to Josh King and roll, or Jimenez to Josh King and Bamidele to Alonso and just stick with the plan. With Antonio, because I've not talked about him very much, I just think it's the wrong time to sell now. He hasn't looked as good, I don't think. Chelsea at home's not great, but the fixtures do turn after this. He's still fit. I think I've got to keep him. I've missed the boat to sell him, basically. I've got other stuff to do. Jimenez needs to go. Kane needs to go soon. Antonio is the least of my worries. So that's how the team's set up. Salah's going to be the captain. Jimenez to Josh King is probably going to be one of the moves. I just don't know whether to do that second move. I think it might be better to roll the transfer and just decide what to do with Kane in game week 16. Given that Norwich game, and hope that he can get at least one assist against one of the worst teams in the league. Otherwise, I know Mboma needs to go at some point, but unless I sell Kane and don't get Ronaldo, I think it's going to be difficult because I think prices will change and I'll be priced out of that Bowen move. So let me know what you think. Let's wait and see what James says, and obviously we'll have the final thoughts game week preview later as well. Alright, if you enjoyed that, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Let me know if you've got any thoughts on what I've said. Am I completely missing something? Who's a player I need to bring in? Leave a comment below. I'll make sure to check through as many as possible. I know it's not ideal doing this just before the press conferences, but that's just the way it is with the quick turnarounds. And obviously, I don't think there's going to be too much massive news which is going to sway my opinion on what players to transfer out. I don't think I can sell Reece James unless he's got a long-term injury, for example. And like I said, I'll do a final thoughts game week preview where I answer some of your questions later on as well. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to go through, and I'll be back with a deadline stream tomorrow as well. So plenty more content to come before game week 15. We'll do it all again next week for game week 16 as well. Give this one a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.